Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India. Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste. Welcome to the 16th session of our course Yoga and Positive Psychology for Managing Career and Life. Today's session is focused on Pranayam as the intervention for managing self, and we have already discussed that managing self is deeply connected to managing career as well. You can recall that we are looking at the interventions according to the different layers of self. So, in the previous sessions we looked at ahar, that is food, and asanas, that is postures, yogic postures, as the interventions at annamaya kosh, as the physical aspect of self. Today in the same sequence we are going to look at pranayam, which is intervention at pranamaya kosh, as the pranic level of self, and in the sessions to come we will look at the interventions at manomaya kosh and vijnanamaya kosh. In the last session you might recall that we talked about asanas for the people with the different Ayurvedic constitution. There are different asanas are suitable for people with the vata constitution, people with the pitta predominant constitution or kapha predominant constitution. Those who are registered for the NPTEL course, they must have received a assessment link. Most of the registered participants, I hope, would have taken that assessment and must have got some idea what is their predominant prakriti or vikriti in terms of vata, pitta and kapha, what is the suitable food for them, and looking at this session they can also figure out what are the asanas most suitable for their prakriti. Today we are talking about pranayam. Let us look at some of the basic, the most fundamental aspects of pranayam. Why we are studying pranayam as the intervention? We are studying pranayam as an intervention because it promotes emotional stability at the spiritual level. It prepares us for the higher levels of yoga and positivity in life. Pranayam has a very unique position in the Ashtanga Yoga. Yam, Niyam, Asan, they are clearly Bahir Yoga, means you can observe them very clearly. Pranayam is also Bahir Yoga, but it is deeply connected with the Antar Yoga, which is Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan and Samadhi. It is linked to breath. It is linked to breath, and breath is a very interesting activity, very intriguing activity in our body. You may say that what is so intriguing about breath, that is probably the most fundamental aspect of life. Yes, that is very fundamental aspect of life, but you know, it is not involuntary activity. Though we cannot live without breathing, but it is not involuntary activity, it is actually a voluntary activity. So, we know that nervous system has autonomous nervous system, which has sympathetic and parasympathetic part, and there is a voluntary aspect of the nervous system. This activity, the call breathing, it connects voluntary and involuntary aspect of nervous system. So, it sits in the middle. It is a kind of a linkage of the human self, or for that matter any organization, any organism with the outside world. So, pranayam also is a science which deals with the physical breath, and it also it is also about the subtle energy which flows with this breath. We all know what is breath. Now, there is another variable in the equation, that is prana. What is prana? So, if you ask what is prana to a yoga teacher, or you look at the answer in the science of yoga, it is said to be a life energy. So, pran is the life energy that is carried within our breath, and it is the bridge between mind and the body. So, pran is that which connects subjective and objective, mind and body, and pranayam is regulation of that pran. So, pran is can be loosely translated as the vital force or vital energy, and that connects subjective and objective aspect of life, that connects body and mind. And we all know that definition of mind which we have looked at in the previous sessions does not identify mind as a localized phenomena. It is an information, it is a regulation system, and it is an embodied system, not localized to one part of the body. That which connects mind and body is called pran, and regulation of that pran is called pranayam. The earliest references of breath and prana are found in Upanishad, in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, and in a very old text, Swara Sarvodaya. In the Tattri Upanishad, it is said conflict between the Vijnanamaya Kosh and Manomaya Kosh, that is intellect and the instinct, causes disturbance in the subtle life energy or prana. And by consciously breathing, by observing our breathing, we can regulate prana, and in this way we can resolve the conflict between the intellect and instinct. That is a teaching in the Tattri Upanishad. Hatha Yoga Pradipika, being the text of yoga itself, elaborates this idea in much greater depth. So, what it says, that it is a solution for the imbalance in prana. It also recognizes that imbalance happens in the pranic level, and the solution to address that imbalance is through slow and deep breathing. It has been said that when the mental state is disturbed, the life energy or prana gets unbalanced, and this leads to irregular breath. Hence, to regulate the mental state, the yoga practitioner should regulate the breath. So, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, as it is said to be the text of about 11th century, it is much more sophisticated, much more elaborate in terms of what practice to be followed. We also remember that Hatha Yoga Pradipika enumerate 84 asanas. So, very elaborate description of the practices is given in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. There is another very old text. There is one similar text called Swara Siddhant, and this text which is being referred here is called Swara Sarvodayam, that gives most elaborate explanation of breath and how it is connected to our life energies and how it is connected to the different types of activities of life. So, it explains that Swara system uses awareness of the nasal cycle. So, the distinction between the Chandra Nadi, Surya Nadi, right nostril breathing and left nostril breathing, that distinction is the basis, that is one of the fundamental tenets, and it explains things in great detail. What it says, that a Swara system uses the awareness of the nasal cycle and rhythm in the subtle body to help us understand when our mind field is suitable to particular activities. It actually explains that right nadi or the right nostril breathing increases or energizes our sympathetic nervous system. It does not use the word sympathetic nervous system, but it explains that right nostril breathing or right is responsible for enhancing our blood pressure, enhancing our temperature and the bodily activities within. Left nostril breathing reduces the temperature, reduces the speed of the breathing and has a calming effect. Since this has a calming effect and Chandra, moon is connected to, and it is it symbolizes the calming aspect of self, it is called Chandranadi, and Surya Nadi, which is connected to the right nostril and right nostril breathing, it is related to the sympathetic system as mentioned earlier, that is called Surya Nadi. When Chandranadi is on, when Chandranadi is active, activities related to imagination, working with the space, meditation, those things are useful when the Chandranadi is active. When Surya Nadi is active, more active engagements, some action, outside work, solving some mathematical problems, these are best done when our Surya Nadi is active. Likewise, it explains so many activities in great detail. So, very interesting science is there behind the breathing itself, behind the nasal cycle, and that is deeply connected to pranayama. Or we can also say it is a bedrock of the pranayama. So, there is a chapter in the fundamentals of the alternative and complementary medicine in the 4th edition, currently the 6th edition is running. This chapter on the vital energy starts with a quote by Carl Jung. What it says, that physical events can be looked at in two ways, from the mechanistic and from the energetic point of view. And from this quote, this chapter starts and elaborate on the idea of vitality, idea of life energies in various cultures. It gives the example for, if I remember correctly, at least 17-18 cultures and what are the correlates of pran exist in those cultures. These are few examples. For example, like in the ancient Egypt, there is a concept of ka, which is very similar to notion of prana. In the Judaism, rock is the notion which is very similar to prana. In Japan, there is a notion of ki, that is reflection of the vital energy, which is similar to prana. In Maori culture, the name of pran is also Maori. So, you can say, you can see the similarity of the Maori and Maori, which is the culture developed in contemporary place called New Zealand. That is also there, this concept is also there in that culture. Then there are some cultures which have much more sophisticated understanding about this life energy. So, they not only talk about the life energy, they also talk about the channels through which this life energy flows. So, in the Tibetan tradition, it is called lung and sta. Lung is the energy, sta is the channel through which this energy flows. In the Chinese culture, very old culture, it mentions about Kui and Jinglo. That is again the synonymous of energy, life energy, and the channel through which it flows. And in the Greece also there are terms like pneuma and phlebi. Pneuma is a reflection of energy and phlebi is the channel through which it runs within our body. So, you can see that notion of pran may look elusive or very subtle, but it exists in almost all cultures. There are many other examples on this slide. We have mentioned only these 5-6 examples, but this chapter, anyone who is interested to look at the cross cultural aspect of life energy and or pranayam, they must look at this chapter. there are some evidences about the role of pranaya and role of prana basically. There are lot of actually research studies on the impact of pranayam, but how to locate pran and how to study pran in a objective, verifiable and more positivist way, that is a big question, because it is subtle, it is not fully objective, and we can look at its impact. So, there are only inferential methods through which we can get sense of what prana is, and we can prove the existence of prana. So, in the 2018, this is the 6th edition of Fundamentals of Complementary, Alternative and Integrative Medicine. There is a chapter written by Staples. Staples compiles various studies which point out the existence of prana, and for the convenience we can club these research findings into the 3 streams. There are studies which suggest that right and left cerebral hemisphere of the brain are connected with the right and left nostril breathing. So, there are some EEG reading based studies which suggest that when the right nostril breathing take place, the left hemisphere becomes more active, and when the left nostril breathing takes place, the right hemisphere related activities and the part of the right hemisphere shows more activity. To corroborate this idea, we all know that left hemisphere, or what we call loosely called left brain, is more related to the logical thinking, verbal abilities, and right brain thinking is more about lateral thinking, more creative thinking related to imagination, working with the space, etc. So, the subsequent research looked at the impact of right and left nostril breathing on verbal ability and the spatial test and the scores in the spatial text. The hypothesis was substantiated. So, left nostril breathing enhances score in the spatial test scores, and right nostril breathing enhances the scores in the verbal ability test. So, this is a kind of a validation of the of the differential impact of the right nostril breathing and left nostril breathing, which is the fundamental aspect of the pranayam. Another example is given about the ultradian rhythms. Ultradian rhythms are the rhythms of the internal organs like kidney or pancreas, and the rhythm of these internal organs are found to be connected with the different nasal cycles. So, these are 3 examples which suggest that right nostril breathing and left nostril breathing have differential impact, of course, the complementary impact, but of course, the distinct impact on our body system. And as we move further, we will see these nasal cycles have impact on our emotional makeup as well. I remember I was offering this session to the group of doctors in IIM Ahmedabad, thanks to Dr. Rajesh Chanwani, who invited me to conduct this session for the doctors. And there, when I was explaining the right nostril breathing, left nostril breathing and the differential impact, there was a sense of puzzlement in the room, because most of the medical professionals look at the fact that ultimately air, whether it is taken from the either of the nostril, goes to the same sac. So, how come it can have a differential impact? But these studies suggest that these are having the differential impact. Nonetheless, this suggests that the idea of Chandranadi and Suryanadi. From here onwards, things become even more subjective. Things become even more difficult to validate objectively, because nadis, as mentioned earlier, are the channels through which the life energy flows. That is the that's an idea about the pranic structure of our body. Ida, Pingala and Sushumna, these are supposed to be three principal nadis or principal channels. Ida is connected to Chandraswar or left nostril breathing. Right nostril breathing is called Suryaswar and it is connected to Pingala. When Ida and Pingala are in the perfect balance, energy flows through Sushumna, which is in between these two nadis. So, that is the next step in the pranic system as explained in the yogic literature, as explained in many other literature what was referred just now. There are some other sets of references which suggest that pran is a source of energy which is distinguishable from the more physical sources of energy, and these examples are taken from the book of Dr. Stephen Parker. He mentions three things: movement without muscle tension. So, he gives example of Swami Vedabharati. In USA, he was conducting a session on biofeedback, and he allowed a doctor to fix the instrument which assess the muscle tension in the body. When the reading was seen by the doctor became little puzzled, and afterward he started chuckling, and Swami Vedabharati asked what is his amusement, why he is chuckling, and doctor said that your reading of the muscle tension is similar to that of a corpse, almost like a dead man has so low muscle tension. But here is Swami Vedabharati, who is standing, who is explaining the concept, who is using the blackboard, writing things, all normal activities, but muscles were so deeply relaxed. So, Stephen Parker infer that this is the sign of prana and suggests that other than the normal objectively verifiable energy, there is another form of energy. When it is active, it can sustain the physical body, and body was sustained because of that energy called prana, which cannot be captured by the instrument which is made to assess the muscle tension. So, there is a very oft quoted experiment conducted in 1964 led by, rather observed by Dr. Kothari and the colleague. So, this experiment was about a sadhu who sat under the earth's surface, all surrounded by the mud, and gradually his life vital signs start coming down. It reached to the level which was similar to a dead body, but at the stipulated period of time, after few days, when this hole was opened up and there was no way he could get oxygen and supplies of water, etc., gradually at the stipulated time his life signals started coming back. So, this is one of the great puzzles of science. There is another set of examples which is about brain waves. So, when we are conducting something, when we are doing something, a different kind of brain waves are emitted through our brain predominantly. These, for example, we are in a very resting stage, a different kind of brain pattern emerges. When our brain is highly active, another very different kind of brain waves emit. There are yogis and there are studies which suggest that beta brain wave which are emitted in a deep restful states are emitted by the brains of yogis when they are in a waking consciousness and carrying out the normal day to day activities, sometimes even carrying out intellectually demanding activities. So, these examples suggest that the form of energy which is objectively verifiable is not the only energy available to us, and based on these we can infer that there is another form of energy which is not objectively verifiable as of now, and that can be called prana. That is why this beautiful picture taken from this website akramyog.co.uk, it compares the Chandranadi and Suryanadi with Shakti and Shiva. Shakti is the energizing aspect of self, Shiva is a reflection of the calming aspect of self, and left and right nostrils are connected to Chandra or Surya Nadi, and this is the pictorial representation, actually very symbolic and represented in a beautiful, with the beautiful symbol of Shiva and Shakti. There are 17 types of prana, but predominantly 5 types are studied. There are 5 predominant types of prana. So, pranic system is made up of pran, the nadis which is channel, chakra is the cross section of the different nadis. So, there are 5 type of pranas studied: Udan, Saman, Vyan, Apan and Pran itself. All these pranas are supposed to have different physical and emotional function. Udan Pran is related to the mental strength and speech, and this is active near the neck and the head and in the head region. So, our face, head, neck activities going on in this region are governed by Udan Prana. So, it is related to the senses, mental strength, speech at the physical level. At the emotional level, our ability of the expression of thoughts and emotions are connected to Udan Prana. Then comes Pranavayu, Prana itself. The Pranavayu is mostly active in the chest and thorax area, and that is related to respiration, memory perception, sensory perception, etc. And at the emotional level, it is connected to the assimilation of information. We all keep getting the different stimuli, but our ability to process the stimuli which we constantly get is different, and that difference is caused by the Pranavayu. The strength of the Pranavayu decides how we assimilate so much information which we receive through our senses, through our cognitive senses. Saman Pran is active in the abdominal area, in the navel and around the navel area, that is responsible for the efficiency in the digestion, metabolism and nourishing. And at the emotional level, it is related to our power of discrimination, our ability to distinguish right and wrong, our ability to distinguish what the yogic tradition says sad, asat, truth and untruth. These abilities, this ability of discrimination is related to the Samana Prana. Vyana Prana, that is active throughout the body, and this prana is responsible for, or it governs the circulatory system and nervous system. And at the emotional level, it is related to coherence and integration of self. What aspect we integrate within, how we maintain the coherence in different aspect of our knowing, our emotionality and our action, that is governed by Vyana Prana. Apana Prana is more active in the sacral area, and that is related to elimination, birthing and menstruation. At the psychological level, it is related to our ability to let go. In our life, we keep facing things. Sometimes these are unpleasant things. Sometimes these become irrelevant once they occur. So, when these things occur, that might be relevant, but when we reflect, and in the hindsight they may not be relevant, but still many of us keep chewing those things, keep churning those things. That becomes a psychological issue. So, our ability to let go things, let go memories which are no longer relevant, which can only cause pain, which can only cause hard feelings, we must be able to let go these. Apana Pran is connected to that aspect of our emotional well-being. So, as I explained, Pranavayu, Nadi system and chakra, these are the components of pranic system. The right side of the picture gives the name of some of the predominant nadis, predominant channels of energy, and it is said in the yogic tradition that there are 72,000 nadis, and these are some of the predominant nadis like Matrika, Tikta, Madhavi, Vishwa, Avantika, Shankhini, Shivali, Sita, Varuna, Pusa. These are some predominant nadis as mentioned in the pranic system. At the cross section of these nadis we have chakras. So, there are thousands of chakras. In fact, on all the joints of the body we have chakras. So, there are so many chakras. What are the predominantly studied chakras in the pranayam and in the pranic system are 7, which we are going to discuss. But before we discuss chakras, the left side of this figure mentions 3 predominant nadis: Ida, Pingala and Sushumna. Pingala is reflected in the blue or violet color. Ida is reflected in the green color. So, Ida, if you remember, that is a Chandranadi which promotes the parasympathetic system. Pingala is called Suryanadi. It promotes the sympathetic nervous system, and at their balance is Sushumna. When both these nadis, when the energy is balanced in both these nadis, Sushumna nadi become active. Then there are 7 chakras: Muladhara chakra at the perineum, Swadhisthana chakra which is between the navel area and perineum, Manipurak chakra which is adjacent to the navel area, Anahat chakra is very close to heart, Vishuddhi chakra which is around the neck area, Agya chakra which is at the forehead, and Brahmarandha which is slightly above the forehead, and there is also chakra which is not mentioned here is Sahasrar, which is at the top of the skull, and it is compared with the lotus with the 1000 petals. And the yogic process helps the sadhakas to get their energy moving from the lower spaces to the higher spaces, from the lower chakras to the higher chakras. There is a whole system about the chakras. There is also a system of the sadhana and the concept called Kundalini Yoga, which predominantly works and take the reference of these 3 nadis and the 7 chakras. We are not discussing those things in this session. We are predominantly understanding how our breathing is connected to our well-being, and we need to look at this metaphysical aspect of the breathing exercises, which is given in a great detail and sophistication in the yogic tradition. So, purpose is just to familiarize yourself about this system. Those who are interested can pursue the different lines, they can pursue this as a knowledge system. Our purpose is to look at how we can use some of the methods for our well-being and evolving as an individual and evolving as a professional. The most interesting interpretation of chakras I heard from very renowned spiritual guru Sri Ravi Shankar ji. We all know that he is the founder of Art of Living Foundation. It conducts many social activities along with the spiritual activities. They teach Sudarshan Kriya, which is the basic practice they teach in most of their programs, but Art of Living Foundation is also very active in the social space, in the organic agriculture, to river rejuvenation, to prison reforms, to general education, to so many other things which are very relevant for the societal development. So, the interpretation of the chakras and the associated energy I found very interesting in the explanations of Shri Ravi Shankar ji. What he says that chakras are the center of energy, that is similar to what pranic science, what the yogic science also says. He goes further and explains what is the nature of energy associated with those chakras. So, depending on the negative spiral or vicious cycle or the positive spiral called the virtuous cycle, the energy is reflected in our personality. So, energies are there, everybody has that energy, everybody has these chakras. If these chakra or the energy associated with these chakra is in the virtuous cycle, we look at the positive expression, life affirming expressions of these energies, and if these energies get trapped into the vicious cycle, not very pleasant expression of that energy. So, Mooladhara chakra is related to enthusiasm. So, energy at the Mooladhara is reflected in the form of enthusiasm. When this is inversely active, we suffer from dullness. She explained that depression is in a way situation where our own mental energy starts working against us. So, the same energy can be reflected in the enthusiasm, and that energy can be expressed in our dullness and depression. We come to the Swadhisthana chakra, which is between the navel area and the perineum. This is in parallel to our gonads. Energy associated with the Swadhisthana chakra may be used only for procreation, maybe for the sexual pleasure. This same energy can also be expressed in the form of creativity. Creativity can get expressed in various forms, we all know about it. The same energy can be wasted in unhealthy sexual activities, and same energy can be used for the expression of creativity. Manipurak chakra, which is in parallel to the navel area, that energy either can be reflected in generosity and the joy associated with generosity, or this can get perverted and reflected in jealousy and greed, and that result into lot of parigraha, lot of hoarding. That is why you might remember that in the yama aspect of yoga, which is the first step in the yoga, we talk about aparigraha. So, aparigraha is possible when Manipurak chakra is active. If Manipurak chakra is not active, it is very difficult to exercise, it is very difficult to follow aparigraha. Coming above the chakra, very closely located near heart area, that is called Anahat chakra. Anahat chakra, when is positively active, people can experience love, people can experience associated compassion. When this chakra, when this energy is perverted, same energy can be reflected in fear and hatred toward others. Above Anahat chakra is Vishuddhi chakra. In the Vishuddhi chakra, which is located in the neck area, when energy is in a virtuous cycle at that level, or the energy related to the Vishuddhi chakra is in the virtuous cycle, we experience gratefulness. But when this energy in the vicious cycle, we experience grief, we experience sadness, and that naturally that energy works against us. Agya Chakra, our energies can go up to Agnya Chakra, and if the Agnya Chakra is emitting the energy in the virtuous cycle, that is reflected in awareness, alertness, our ability to make decision, our ability to distinguish things, our ability for the discrimination, our ability to make judgments about things. However, if the same energy is in the vicious cycle, it is reflected, or rather it go wasted in the form of anger. And as we mentioned about Sahasrasar, this is the crown chakra. If energy reaches there, we only experience joy. There is no opposite of Anand if energy reaches to the Sahasrasar. So, Sahasrasar is where there is no negativity left, and we only experience joy. We can look at our terminology as well of the indigenous positive psychology. We talk about dukha, sukha, suvidha, asuvidha. So, all these terms have negative and positive connotations. However, there is no opposite to Anand. Anand is the translation of bliss, and there is no opposite of that. The purpose of yoga is to experience Anand in the day-to-day life. We may acquire suvidha or convenience, we may acquire happiness or sukha, we may acquire pleasure, but that always remain time bound. When we acquire Anand, it is consistent process, it is not based on the external object. The purpose of yoga is to able to discover bliss, able to discover the comfort, able to discover peace within ourselves, not outside self. So, our happiness and our joy is not dependent on outside when we engage into the yogic practice. Pranayam is that intervention which help us to raise the energy level, which can be properly directed towards the life affirming, non-egoist and non-selfish ways of expression. So, chakras are extensively studied in many healing processes in the healing schools. We are not discussing that, but if you are interested, you can certainly pursue your studies and experiential exercises around those. Our focus is primarily on the pranayam practices. Most of these practices are taken from this book. The documentation is taken from this book. Most of these practices I have learnt from the Patanjali Foundation's teacher learning program, and also have been benefited by the programs of Art of Living and Inner Engineering, and many of these practices I have learnt from these foundations, but the teacher training I took from the Patanjali Foundation's program, and the documentation part of it, step by step process are taken from this book of Swami Niranjananand Saraswati. He is with the Bihar School of Yoga, Munger, and those who are interested to read further or to know these practices in more detail can refer this book. This book explains pranayam in 4 types, but here we have taken 3 types only: conscious breathing, preliminary breathing methods, and classical pranayams. To understand conscious breathing, we must take note of the functionality of the brain. We have predominantly 3 types of 3 components of brain which are related to the different activities: limbic brain, reptilian brain, and prefrontal cortex. Reptilian brain is most evolved, and it is primarily maintains or regulates the basic bodily functions, coldness, dryness, managing territory, controlling our life situations, that is related to that, survival related things. Limbic brain, which first started evolving, first started appearing amongst the mammals, that limbic brain, that part of brain is related to the emotions, memories. So, naturally it is related to relationships, association, building family, working together, those aspects. So, that is the limbic brain. And prefrontal cortex, that is most evolved part of our brain, that is related to the most sophisticated executive function or cognitive activities like attention, self control, compassion, free will, judgment, planning, etc. If we look at and if we distinguish conscious breathing with unconscious breathing, we find that unconscious breathing falls under the control of primitive parts of brain. When we are unconsciously breathing, only the primitive part of brain shows more activity. However, when we do conscious breathing, the frontal brain start registering that activity and that becomes active. So, naturally when frontal brain is active, we have more control on different other activities. We can be more conscious in making judgments, planning, being compassionate about others, we can self control ourselves. So, you might remember the allegory of chariot. The mind is the rein through which the senses can be controlled. That rein is powerful when we are consciously breathing. So, the control over the senses with that rein will come down, will be loosened when we are engaged in the unconscious breathing. So, the conscious breathing itself is the first pranayam. You might recall there is a very well developed field of practices and there is a lot of research studies, there are a lot of research studies associated with that field, is called mindfulness. Mindfulness predominantly based on observing our breath without regulating it, without changing its intensity or speed, observing that breath, that is the essence of the mindfulness practices. Similarly, this practice is done in a Buddhist tradition and this practice over there is called vipassana. There is a ethical, moral and metaphysical aspect of the vipassana and that is equally important. Similarly, mindfulness also has a ethical, moral basis that is equally important, but in terms of the practice, mindfulness and vipassana to the core are nothing but conscious breathing. And just by conscious breathing, we come to know, we become aware of the functioning of mind, how attachment takes place, how some of the events disturb us, and how just by being observant about our breath, we can control our senses, we can control our instincts, we can be more, we can live more consciously. So, there is a vast field in itself in the form of vipassana or in the form of mindfulness, which is just based on conscious breathing. But pranayam is not only about conscious breathing, it is only the very first step, that is a basic thing. To understand the pranayam, which is actually regulation. So, in the mindfulness they emphasize not to regulate breathing at all, but in pranayam that regulation is very much part of the practice and that the essence of practice rather. To understand how to control the breathing and what are the different forms of it, we need to understand preliminary breathing methods. So, there are three types of breathing methods: abdominal or diaphragmatic breathing, thoracic breathing and clavicular or shoulder breathing. Abdominal breathing happens when action of the diaphragm increases and decreases the size of thoracic activity. The diaphragm is a muscular structure which is right below the ribs, and that creates a boundary between the ribs or the thorax and our stomach. If you see a child, particularly when a child is sleeping, you can very clearly see the movement in his or her stomach. That is the diaphragmic breathing. So, when the diaphragmic breathing takes place, the diaphragm goes up little bit, and the more comfortable experience is more comfortable experience occurs in the diaphragmatic breathing. Thoracic breathing is when thorax area expands predominantly, and in the thoracic breathing, breathe or the air is mostly centered in the upper part of the lungs, whereas abdominal breathing helps in increasing lower parts of the lungs as well. Then comes clavicular breathing, which is the side aspect, which is the side structure of the lungs, and when the air is filled there, our shoulder also become little stiff. Yogic breathing is combination of all three. Normally we are engaged in the thoracic and clavicular or shoulder breathing. Yogic breathing, we are going to look at the yogic breathing, is engaging in all three parts of breathing. So, in this session, let us look at how we can do the conscious breathing, and this itself has a major calming effect. So, sit comfortably or lie in Savasana and carry out this practice of Kaya Shathiliyam, that is loosening the body. You can sit down on the chair, and then you can take your attention from the toes to ankle to the calf muscles to knees to lungs to gonads to stomach to chest to shoulders to neck, and calm down these all organs. Or you can lie down in Shavasana and take your attention from toe to head gradually, and that process will calm down your mental activities, and that will give the sense of relaxation. So, that is the first step in conscious breathing. Be in this stage for few minutes. If you are sitting on the chair or lying in Shavasana, be in that state, be in that relaxed state for few minutes, and just observe, start observing breathing. Need not to change the breathing pattern, just observe this. As you continue to give attention to the breath, it becomes more conspicuous to you, you become more aware to the speed, intensity and depth of your breathing. Even at this stage, when you are more aware of these aspects of breathing, do not try to regulate it, just observe. Just observe, is there a gap between the breaths? Is it shallow? Is it slow? Or is it deep? Keep your awareness on each exhalation and inhalation, and say to yourself mentally that I am aware that I am breathing in, I am aware that I am breathing out. Now count your breath backward from 27 to 0. And mentally say that I am aware that I am breathing in 27, I am aware that I am breathing 26, 25, 24, 23 and continue this process up to 1. Mind naturally wanders, and if we are doing it after long time or if we are doing it first time, we can experience this wandering mind more intensely. So, what I do if my mind get distracted during the time of counting? So, I start from 27 and by the time I reach 18 or 15, my mind goes somewhere else. What do you need to do? You need to come back to 27 and start counting again. Continue this process till the time without distraction you can count inversely from 27 to 1. This may take few minutes, maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes. If you are doing it first time, it may take even more. But experience the relaxation and sense of comfort you get after this simple conscious breathing process. Thank you.